He's said to be the man with the Midas touch. Ace political strategist Prashant Kishor is back in talks with the Congress. Will he sign on the dotted line? Or will talks be inconclusive again? What is Prashant Kishor's Congress's revival plan? Will the Gandhis accept his radical changes? Will the party's grand old congressmen abide? Will Prashant Kishor finally, formally join the Congress party? And can he script the party's reincarnation? Top focus on To The Point this evening. So good evening viewers, you're watching To The Point. I'm Preeti Chaudhary. The big question right now, will Prashant Kishor join the Congress? And if he does, what is his roadmap for revival of a party which is practically sinking? Well, we're going to get to you all of that. But before, I want to cut across to that quick excerpt of an interview that Prashant Kishor gave, his last interview, viewers, which seems to suggest that the doors to the Congress were still open. This was about a month and a half ago. And what we are getting to understand, any day now, possibly, Prashant Kishor could formally enter the Congress. Done with the flirtations, will tie the knot. Will he? We don't quite know yet, but we're going to break it down over the course of 45 minutes. But listen in.
Well, I've been on record. Congress will always have a future. Whether Congress in the present formation has a future or not, that is for the present leadership to decide. I am nobody to comment about that. But anyone who thinks that Congress, the idea and the space is going to die in this country, so long the democracy is there, so long multi-party democracy exists in this country, Congress will be there. I wouldn't say, it's not about the individual, Rajdeep. Again, we are talking about seriously what is wrong with Congress.
Yes.
So it's not a function of a person. I have explained this in some other interviews also. Congress has been in secular decline electorally since 1985. Please, your viewers should take note of this. Congress has been in secular decline as a political organization since 1985. They require to change fundamentally the way they organize themselves, the way they conduct themselves, the way they do the mass outreach, the way they fight elections. Everything needs to change and undergo significant change. It will not come out with some, it's like you have a cancer and you cannot, and you are wanting to treat it with some antibiotic. Because of my background, it is the conventional way of trusting and getting somebody to work with you will not work. You have to take a leap of faith. Whether they are willing to take that leap of faith or not, it's completely on them. It's not for me.
On your part, you're open.
I'm open. If they come and they talk, there's no problem with me. If Congress has to revive itself, it has to be a long-term approach. 7-10 years. That doesn't mean that you cannot be a fighting machine in 2024, but you have to take a long-term approach. On most of the point, there was an agreement, but for 2 or 3 crucial issues.
Could you give us details of the sticking points in the conversation that you were having with the Congress and possible workarounds that if that conversation were to be resumed?
I think it would be unfair, and as a matter of principle, whatever I discuss in private, I should remain private, and I would never discuss the detail of it. I have told you that there was agreement on 95% of issues.
95% of the issues.
All right, viewers, we're also going to tell you a little bit that what are the sticking points? Why is it that Prashant Kishor yet hasn't formally joined the Congress? The talks have been on now for 2 years. The first wave of COVID was when Prashant Kishor had met the Congress formally, looking to join. The Congress was very eager. Then there was a lull. And then the talks have begun once again. What are the reservations, the PK reservations that Congress has, and of course the Congress reservations that possibly Prashant Kishor has? But before that, I'm going to quickly take you through on what is the possible roadmap envisioned by Prashant Kishor, which seems to be by our sources rather radical in its nature. But I want to take you now to what are the various proposals put forth by Prashant Kishor. He's proposed a complete overhaul of the party. If inducted, Prashant Kishor has said that he's going to completely overhaul the party, but these are all source-based information. Secondly, there is indication, as per our sources, that Prashant Kishor pitched to the committee put forth by Sonia Gandhi that Rahul Gandhi will not be the Congress's Prime Minister face in 2024. One wonders how that will go down, not just with the top brass, but also the Gandhis themselves. The communication department of the Congress will completely be dismantled and reset. On the other hand, this communication department is actually headed by Mr. Surjewala, Randeep Singh Surjewala. Also, the other proposal to stem the culture of sycophancy and entitlement. There is the culture in Congress where, the high command is this overarching figure, and a lot of people inside the Congress have said that there is this massive culture of sycophancy. Moreover, fixed terms, including that of the President of the Congress, is possibly one of the proposals of Prashant Kishor. Moreover, one family, one ticket, which will maybe stem the nepotism debate, which goes against the grain of the Congress on many times. Radical changes proposed for party funding. Is there an attempt to make the party funding public, which Prashant Kishor has pitched? Well, as per our sources, yes. Will help broker new alliances. Now, Prashant Kishor already, he's worked with the TMC, he's worked with YSRCP, he's worked with the TRS. Will he be now looking at maybe forging new alliances for the party, which is running dry, of many parties now not looking at the Congress to be the fulcrum of the opposition in 2024? Lastly, the party will have to once again get together and induct in itself grassroots workers. Drive for fresh induction and an influx of youth. Well, Prashant Kishor's revival plan, as per our sources, is this, but there are many reservations as well from the Congress and from Prashant Kishor as well. Is the deal done? Well, many in the know of the Congress suggest yes, it's a matter of days now. But those close to Prashant Kishor also say that the deal is far from done. So what are the sticking points in all of that, and what could Prashant Kishor actually offer to the Congress, which is practically, many would suggest, is sinking right now? Let's break it down. We have three experts today. Swati Chaturvedi, columnist and author; Sanjay Jha, political analyst; Rashid Kidwai, senior journalist. Both Rashid and Swati have written very detailed pieces on what would Prashant Kishor's induction detail, and how desperate is each to get in. Is Prashant Kishor more desperate, or is it the Congress party which needs him more? Sanjay Jha, before we get to our two journalists there, I want to begin with you. Would you reckon somebody like a Prashant Kishor would be easily accepted within the Congress, at least with what we are picking up, the kind of changes that he's suggesting?
Preeti, by a sheer coincidence, I have also done a piece, and the title says that the Congress needs PK more than PK needs the Congress. In your introduction, you have hit the nail on the head. The Congress at the moment appears to a large part of India that has historically supported it, and even today, despite its diminished potency, still has some faith in its ability to resurrect itself. People do believe that the Congress needs to somehow find a narrative. And the fact is that PK at this point of time can say the things to the Congress leadership that a majority, if not the entire Congress, does not have the courage to speak to the Congress leadership and tell them the hard facts. I meet a lot of people who tell me that we seem to know what the problem with the Congress is. How come the Congress leadership appears so nonplussed by what they need to do? And, there are times you need someone from the outside who disrupts the system, call it creative destruction if you like. But the Congress has become a fuddy-duddy, old fogey, completely archaic political organization. It is not dynamic with the times. And I think that's one of the reasons why there is a total disconnect. I'll give you one example. Wherever the Congress finds itself on a sticky wicket, they'll appoint a committee. And we all know the famous quote, if you want to kill an idea or a proposition, appoint a committee. And these are the continuing fault lines within the party. So after so many debacles, the big decision is, let's hold a Chintan Shivir. These tell you that there are manifestations of a serious collapse of the organization, and the electoral debacles haven't helped. And I do hope that Prashant, he is, people might in the Congress will try and rubbish him by saying he's not a political animal, that he will only be a guy who will look at data, science, etc. But the truth is that you do need someone to come and tell you what you need to do. And I think if Mrs. Gandhi is taking the call, I think that's the first positive sign for the party, because it's important that at least the rest of the Congress party will stand by whatever decision she takes.
All right, apologize, Sanjay. I'm going to quickly read the piece that you have written. I might have overlooked that one. But Swati Chaturvedi, in terms of the changes that Prashant Kishor has offered, what's so radically different than what, say, the G23, wanted as well? And on the other hand, will the party actually accept Prashant Kishor? Many of, the old-timers of the Congress still call him somebody who's ideologically an opportunist.
Yes, exactly, Preeti, and I'm going to nuance this by saying that the whole PK joining Congress, and this is a bit of journalistic bragging, but I did the stories and then we debated it on the Rahul Kanwal show, and it's been nearly a year. So that shows you how slowly the Congress moves. Now, the point here is, Preeti, that we really don't know what Mr. Prashant Kishor's ideology is. He says he is agnostic. Nobody can really be agnostic and work on one hand with Mr. Modi and on the other hand work with Mr. Rahul Gandhi. He's already had a political stint which we, with our short memories, forget. Remember, he was in the JDU, very disastrous couple of months, when Nitish Kumar booted him out and said that, he had taken him in the Janata Dal United on the recommendations of his better-knower, Mr. Amit Shah. So, it's not that Mr. Prashant Kishor has not been in politics. He has been for a disastrous period in the Janata Dal United. And now his prescriptions for the Congress, this is exactly what poor old A.K. Antony, who's 80 years old, said. And if we expect that the Gandhis will write themselves into extinction, as these proposals, which I'm actually not saying these proposals are correct, but that's what the proposals you just said, that Rahul Gandhi should not be Prime Minister, somebody else should be Congress President. Now, are we really expecting the Gandhi family, which has clung on after 2 general election defeats and serial defeat, they've lost almost 80% of the elections contested on their leadership, to actually write themselves, off the history books? I think it's a very tall ask. Mr. Prashant Kishor may get into the Congress, but I don't know why we're so excited, because he is a market, he calls himself an analyst. What does an analyst do? He markets a product. What is the product he's marketing? When there is, when he has a good product, like Mamata Banerjee or like Mr. Modi or like Jagan Reddy, he gets good results. But are you going to say that Prashant Kishor can radically now remarket Rahul Gandhi?
All right, okay, Rashid Kidwai, do you see the Gandhis accepting, he's bringing about, or at least what, sources insist, or those close to him insist, he's bringing about these radical changes that he wants. One of them, that possibly Rahul Gandhi will not be the prime ministerial face for the Congress going ahead. The other, that he's going to keep open and not shut the alliances he's already forged as an election strategist with, say, the TMC, the YSRCP, the TRS. Will he fit into what is the original Congress culture, where we've rarely seen lateral entries? It's always been, it might be built on sycophancy, but these are old-timers who've grown up the ladder.
Yeah, so Preeti, it is very simple in the sense that the Congress, particularly after March 10th, there was a complete sense of despondency. Many regional satraps were seriously contemplating to move out of the Congress. And Gandhis, remember, Preeti, there is no history of a member of Nehru-Gandhi family failing in politics. Jawaharlal Nehru stayed on as Prime Minister till the last day. So was the case with Indira Gandhi. Though she lost, but she staged a great comeback. Sanjay Gandhi died young. Rajiv Gandhi was about to become Prime Minister again when he was killed. And Sonia Gandhi, back-to-back victory for 2004, 2024. So the problem with Rahul was that he was heading at a dead end. And that's where Sonia Gandhi has got this whole story where Prashant Kishor is projected as a Man Singh Dhoni kind of person who's capable of doing. One can go on talking about ideology, etc. But in political parties, there is a near absence of political ideology. And therefore, Jyotiraditya Scindia fits in very well in the BJP, and the many people in the Congress who have been outside were not known for their ideology. And in fact, the outsiders make a much bigger cut in the Congress. You look at the two Aruns, Arun Nehru and Arun Singh. You look at Dr. Manmohan Singh. You look at all those Madhusudan Mistry and Mohan Gopal, and many of them who made entry during Rahul Gandhi's time. So it's all going to click. as long as Gandhis are for it. And in this story, Gandhis are for it. They are the ones who started this, and they are the ones who are going to get it executed. Because many a times it was very difficult for Sonia Gandhi. Say there's a kind of tussle going on between Ashok Gehlot and Sachin Pilot. How do you resolve it? Now you will have a a kind of PK report, okay, or whatever the roadmap. So there are going to be a lot of outstanding problems are going to be streamlined, whether it will work or not. But the story will continue till 2024.
All right, okay, but will they actually listen to PK is the other question. Swati is shaking her head, but I know you want to come in, Swati. May I just bring in Sanjay Jha first, and I'll come right back to you. Sanjay, the fact is, like you began, the show with, that the Congress needs PK. But he's also someone who needs the Congress as well, because he has political ambitions. He's made it very clear in the past. And at some level, the Congress would be, you can't wrong them for actually questioning his intentions.
In my opinion, it will be a perfect marriage. At some point, when you have understood the intricacies of Indian politics, I think, you need to really get into the mainstream. Anyone, and with due respect to Swati, it's very easy to criticize, people who have an analytical bent of mind, or who speak good English, or who supposedly are urban elites, and to treat them, what, these guys don't have zamini pakad, to inko rajniti kya aata hoga. I think this is a fallacy. Politics has changed. You see, that it's a new dynamic which has entered. You find a lot of people laterally entering politics today, which I think is a very welcome development. Now, to answer your question, does PK need the Congress? To be honest, PK's success story tells you that today he is an asset to any party he works for. The Congress, after the kind of disasters it's experienced, needs to do something dramatic to wake up from this terrible deep slumber. And the truth, Preeti, which you and I both know, and where Swati is completely right, that the elephant in the room remains who is going to head the Congress. And I think these are tough decisions that the Congress party will have to take. And sometimes you need an outsider to kind of read you the riot act or show you the mirror. And I do believe that if Prashant has to succeed, he will have to push the boundaries. The Congress party will have to get out of the comfort zone. Now, I have lots of friends in the Congress, I will tell you that. And I can tell you majority of them are going to feel terribly upset if they are going to be feeling the fear of a loss of authority or agency. But listen, I think the Congress party is bigger than individuals, and there is a need for a disruption within the party.
But can he be, this magic bullet that, like, pretty much, Sanjay, with what you're envisioning him as, that he is going to be, that one-stop solution to everything that is wrong with the Congress? You have, Swati, I'll bring you in on this. 2017 happened. He didn't pull it for the Congress. He did work for the Congress then.
Absolutely, he worked with all those that are disastrous UPK Ladke campaign. Nothing happened. Now, I'm repeatedly saying this, Preeti, that, he is not, PK is not some wizard. He's not Merlin, at King Arthur's court, that he's going to wave a wand and the Congress is going to get back to magically winning elections. There's a huge trust factor here. The examples that Mr. Rashid Kidwai was giving were of people who were broadly, in with the ideology of the Congress, who made lateral entries. The Congress is a very peculiar kind of political party, whereas everybody might, right now be pretending that everything is wonderful, let PK come in. But there's going to be huge resistance. There's also a trust factor and a trust deficit. Why should the Congress party trust somebody who was just batting for Mamata Banerjee, who basically tried to decimate them in Goa, who's worked for their worst opponents? And also the biggest thing here that, what radical, you could do radical surgery, say the operation is successful and patient has died. Do you really see, as a journalist, the Gandhi family, which has displayed a healthy love for power, writing themselves out of the history books and handing over the organization to PK? Why not hand it over to someone like Sachin Pilot, who's very popular, or some other somebody who's part of the Congress? Why should this, outsider be literally given the keys to the kingdom, outsourcing leadership doesn't work?
Rashid Kidwai, the kingdom is run by the High Command. This is also a man who's gone ahead and said that the Congress leadership is not the divine right of one individual, and he's made many such comments. How well will that be taken when right now, many from the committee would actually tell you, maybe not on record because it seems Sonia Gandhi wants him, but will tell you he's BJP's Trojan horse?
Exactly.
Preeti, I find it very, amusing, this kind of thing. His criticism of the Congress, or for that matter, his affiliation with the past with the BJP of Mr. Modi is a very open book. You look at Sharad Pawar. You see, in a Congress working committee meeting, he made some very direct and personal comments against Sonia Gandhi. And 6 months down the line, the Congress and Sharad Pawar were sharing power in Maharashtra. So the Congress or Gandhis are they're very pragmatic people. They know that, see, that's what I keep saying, Priti, there is no other story that's there. They have tried everything. They have tried projecting Priyanka Gandhi in a big way in Uttar Pradesh. They, of course, played the Rahul card. They have done everything possible. Nothing is working. And therefore, if you see it cleverly, the Congress and PK are not talking about Gujarat Assembly elections. They're not talking about, Karnataka Assembly election. They're talking about 24. Because you need a 24 story. You need some kind of self-confidence. You need to sell a, dream. Whether dream is realized or not, we will get to know. That is an attempt so that, see, Mamata Banerjee, MK Stalin, and other various regional satraps, they are all on board. And there is some kind of concerted effort is there. Imagine the Congress in 2014 got 44 seats in Lok Sabha. They got 52 seats in 2019. If the tally goes up to 70, 80, it will create a huge euphoria in the Congress. Even if they are not able to beat Modi in 2014, there will be hope for 2029. Political parties, in particular in opposition, survive on hope. Now, the problem in Congress was after March 10, there was no hope. And no hope because the way they lost in Punjab, the way they lost in Uttarakhand. Imagine, you see, the chief minister loses, but the party wins with a much bigger mandate.
Okay.
And the Congress had a face. So it's not that Congress politics was not there, but timing is very important. Every election, they don't, they end up, doing not doing things that are considered very basic and elementary in politics.
All right, Sanjay, timing is of all important. This is the time where the Congress is looking exceedingly desperate. Is this short-term impetus right now for possibly long-term loss, which the Congress is building itself to?
Well, let me tell you one thing, Preeti. I wish Congress was proactive. When you read my article, you'll find 9 suggestions, and I hope Prashant is able to execute a lot of them and hopefully a lot more. But the truth is the party is basically embroiled in some kind of a regulatory or bureaucratic cholesterol. It is such a slow-moving party that people like me, honestly, got terribly frustrated. I mean, people just don't respond. Nobody listens to you. And there are 2 points I wish to make here. What I like about Prashant is that he's taking on a tough challenge. You have raised the right questions. Is the Congress now a desperate case where you're only moving the seats on the deck of a Titanic that is inevitably going to sink? So I think he's taking on a tough one. Even he has a personal brand to protect. Let's try and respect that, for heaven's sake. And the second point, I agree with Swati that, I don't think Prashant is coming in as a Congress president overnight or maybe even in the future. I don't know about that. But the larger point is that I have recommended the same thing that she said. Give the party a Sachin pilot Priyanka, Gandhi ticket. Priyanka will keep the loyalists within the Congress happy. And Sachin will be able to attract a lot of those people who have got disillusioned with the Congress because of the dynastic politics.
All right, I'm going to close the show, but I'm going to quickly come to each one of you. Swati, do you see Prashant Kishor joining in the near future, or do you think it's once again going to be a bunch of flirtatious moves and nothing really coming out of it?
Well, I think he will join, and I also think that the way things are going, the Gandhi family looks to be creating like a buffer of criticism against Rahul Gandhi by putting up this Prashant Kishor as the mukhota. I don't know if it will work.
All right, Rashid Kidwai, very quickly, and then I'm going to jump into a break.
I think the fact that Prashant Kishor was asked to make a presentation and Sonia Gandhi has spent, over 20 hours, deliberating with him and with other political leaders, it clearly tells you that it's as far as Prashant Kishor's issues, he is very much going to be part of the Congress party. What will happen, I do not know. That only, future would tell. But it looks far more promising what it was on 10th of March or 11th of March.
Sanjay, Congress might have cleared the deck, but is PK game? Because clearly you must have spoken with him.
Well, I can tell you one thing. What I like about PK is he calls a spade, a shovel, a shovel. All right, he's raised questions.